Buenos días, amigos. ¿Listos? I'm so delighted to be joining you here today in Puebla for the Festival de las Ideas. And I'm excited today to be kicking off our health segment. You are going to get to learn today about many fascinating new ideas that are not only radically changing how we can live our lives today, but how we're going to be able to live our lives in the future. And so my theme for today, to kick us off, is to think about how we're going to be building our best lives. Not just through science, not just through technology, but also through our mindsets and our ideas and how we all work together to make this future as beautiful and healthy for as many people as possible here in Mexico, but also all around the world. Now, we have done a really great job in the last 100 years in expanding how long people live. That's our lifespan. And you can see here that the average human lifespan has actually about doubled in the last 100 years, certainly in the last 50 years. And this has happened for a lot of reasons. It's happened because we've managed to get infant mortality rates down, so babies don't die when they're very young, but also nutrition, education, hygiene, cleaner, safer cities. All of these things have done wonders for people to be able to live longer lives. But I'd like to remind us for a minute that we want to make sure that we're not just adding lives, we're not just adding years, because what we want to do is not just live longer, but we want to live better. We want to live our very best lives. And this is not a new idea. Remember, Socrates, the philosopher, had said many, many thousands of years ago, it's not life, but the good life, which is to be chiefly valued. So in today's session, we're going to be looking at how we are doing that, not just about adding on more years to the life, because we've already done that, but making sure that we are spending those lives, years, healthy and happy, doing the things we care about with the people that we love on an earth that is very well taken care of. And for the past few days, you've been hearing some fantastic ideas about how different technologies are coming together to accomplish that. But let's focus for a minute on health. Today, this is how we spend our healthcare dollars. About 30% of the money we spend in healthcare goes to treating symptoms of diseases, and another 60% goes to modifying the diseases that we already have. So that's today. But what we're expecting to see in coming years is a radical shift in how those dollars are spent. In 20 years, we expect to see that about 30% of our healthcare dollars are actually going to go to preventing diseases before we ever get them, and 40% to curing a disease. Now, that's not quite the same as taking a pill every day, which is what we do today, but actually using some of these really fascinating and powerful technologies to make the disease go away or make sure we never get it in the first place. This is a very radical mindset shift. And my friend and colleague, Dr. Daniel Kraft, who you get to hear from next, is going to be talking about this transition away from today's sick care to tomorrow's true health care. And so I am just so excited to be here at this time just with you so that you can look forward and see how these changes are really going to happen. Because imagine that we were able to do these things for today's two leading causes of death, heart disease and cancer. Imagine if we could stop people from getting heart disease at all. If we could cure cancer and make sure it never comes back. These are very, very, very exciting ideas. And as a result, that means that I'm expecting to see a big change in the average human lifespan. So as we mentioned, we're at about 76 years. That's how long the average person on Earth can expect to live. But I think that thanks to a lot of these technologies and new mindsets that we're hearing about at the festival, that in fact we're going to be able to extend that median lifespan even much further. 90 years, 100 years, even 120 years we might see a time when it is normal, it is average to live 120 years. So how are we going to achieve this amazing future of healthy, long lives? Well, one of the main ways we're going to do this is through technology. And we are at this amazing time right now today where the barriers between the living world and the non-living world are starting to come down. Increasingly, we're seeing that biology is technology. And again, with Dr. Daniel Kraft, you're going to be taking a deep dive into looking at the many of the ways that our wearables, virtual reality, augmented reality, sensors, all kinds of amazing kinds of data we can get are coming not just kind of in an average way where maybe you have to go to a hospital to get these tests, but a true healthcare everywhere model that is personalized and actionable. This is the most important point. Because we're able to gather lots and lots of information about our bodies. Raymond mentioned DNA to you. DNA testing, show of hands, how many of you have had a DNA test or had your genome sequenced? Only a few. You guys, you gotta play with the technology. You gotta try it out. That's how you get to be a leader. But what's really exciting is when we can move from data to insights. Not just, what does this do with my risk profile right now based on the data I can gather about my DNA? But how can I look at the medicines that I take or the supplements that I take, the exercise that I do, the air that I breathe, the city that I live in, and the food that I eat? How can I integrate all of these things to go from this sort of generic idea of risk, which is what we have today, instead to personalized, actionable insights that help me and support me in, again, living my healthiest possible life? Healthy aging is a really important part of this. And fortunately, we're getting more and more science about how the food that we eat and the exercise that we do can actually contribute to a much healthier aging process. I think a lot about health in the brain for a variety of reasons, but Alzheimer's disease, for example, and other types of dementia, that is a huge burden, not just on the patient, but also on their families and on society. And again, if we think about this idea of living longer lives, perhaps we can all agree that we don't want to live a very, very long time, but live a life where we don't recognize the people that we love, right? Where we can't do the things that we think about. And so I'm extremely excited by healthy aging technologies that are focusing on the brain through ways of imaging disease before it starts to happen so we can start trying to intervene early, and through some really, really exciting therapies like this gamma therapy that I'm telling you about right now that's in clinical trials for Alzheimer's disease that is basically a special clicking noise and a special flashing light that seems to break up the tangles in the brain that cause Alzheimer's disease. If it turns out that that type of science works as well in humans as it does in mice, that is revolutionary, right? Because it's really changing our ability to live our longest, healthiest life with our healthiest brains. So I'm very, very excited about that. There's a few other really exciting things that people are doing to this healthy aging idea. So how many of you have had an RNA vaccine for COVID? Yeah, quite a few. So I don't know if you know this, I think Raymond might have mentioned this a little bit, but you know, RNA vaccines, they were not invented for COVID. People had been working on them for more than a decade, mostly for cancer. So again, the reason the RNA vaccine is so cool is because it's using biology as technology. We take the RNA or DNA sequence of the thing we're trying to use our immune systems to fight. We turn that into the vaccine. We load that vaccine into our bodies. Our body boots up that information and makes a protein that now your immune system learns how to recognize and fight. So for example, this is happening right now with cancer vaccines. Pfizer is working on a personalized cancer vaccine, BioNTech, where the BioNTech's CEO claims that they can go from the bench, the laboratory, to a personalized vaccine in a cancer patient's arm in 4 to 6 weeks. That's in clinical trials right now. Again, if that holds up, that is an amazing tool for us for healthy aging. Folks are also using this type of technology to come up with Alzheimer's vaccines, to get our immune systems to fight those tangles and the various things that happen in our body that lead to cognitive decline and change. So stay tuned for this, because I think this technology space is going to be really exciting in future years as we find more and more ways to use this technology to keep ourselves healthier longer. So this is this idea of health span. And as I mentioned, Dr. Kraft is going to be showing you lots of really amazing ways that this is really changing. But let's spend our last few minutes together thinking about lifespan. So that's literally the number of years that we are alive. And there's an important thing that I want to point out here. So this is the first thing. Here I'm showing you the lists of things, the causes of death for people who are 70 or older, right? So from a statistical perspective, you might say, well, what aging really is an increased risk of death as you get older. And that's the statistical construct, right? And it turns out the things that kill us when we're older, interestingly, are also the things that kill us when we're younger. And that's exactly who you think it is. That's cardiovascular disease, that's cancer, it's diabetes, it's respiratory infections. That was true even before COVID, by the way. And dementia. These are the things that kill us when we're old, and they're also the things that kill us when we're younger. And here, there are two important ideas that I want to introduce to you when we're thinking about this idea of aging and healthy aging. First of all, let me ask you, based on what you know about DNA and some other things, how much of your lifespan, the number of years that you're going to live, do you think you inherit with your DNA? How many of you think it's half, 50%? How many think it's like 90%? It's way more, it's mostly your DNA. And how many of you think it's like 10%? It has nothing to do with your DNA. Okay, well, according to the latest science, it seems to be that only about 10%, maybe 25% at most, of the number of that's what goes into determining how long we live from our DNA. It's only 10%. And so the first big idea here is the things that we do matter. DNA is not destiny. We can make choices about the lives that we live and how we take care of our health that really do have a big impact on how long we live. Here's the second idea, and it's the one that I'm really excited about as a molecular biologist. So when you think about aging, what do you think about, right? You think about gray hair, you think about wrinkles, you think about maybe not having so much energy for sex, maybe not having energy at all. These are all the things that we think of, right, with aging. But as a molecular biologist, I'm interested in the things that happen at much smaller scales. And so when I look at the hallmarks of aging or the effects of aging, I'm thinking about things that happen to our DNA, things that happen to our proteins, things that happen to our cells. And the cool thing is the science has gotten much, much better at defining exactly what these changes are. What changes with our DNA? What kind of damage does it pick up? What kind of damage does our protein pick up? How do our cells stop talking to each other and talking to the immune system properly? We're getting better and better at understanding these things. And as we're understanding them, we've learned something very important. And it's that it's not just that these are the effects of aging, but it seems that these things are also fundamentally the processes of aging. And for a scientist, this is a really important distinction. Because if I know that I have a system for aging, which I do, in which if I change the causes and I change the effects, if I change the effects here, I can actually change the cause. So that's not like, for example, with diabetes, right? If I have diabetes and I take insulin, I'm not fundamentally changing my pancreas anymore, right? My pancreas is no longer making insulin. But with aging, what it looks like with the biology is if I change the effects of aging, the DNA damage, the protein damage, the cellular damage, that actually seems to make us younger. And this is an amazing thought because, again, it means that aging is not inevitable, potentially. And it means we have ways to work on science in laboratory that then when we can test them in humans and see, can we actually slow human aging? Could we maybe stop it? Or even crazier, could we actually turn the clock back? And this is an idea that is so exciting because we're already doing this today in the laboratory with animals. The only question is, can we make this work for humans as well? And even more excitingly, that list of things that I showed you that kill us due to age, well, it seems like aging is actually a root cause among all of these things: cardiovascular disease, dementia, diabetes, respiratory disease. So again, if we go back to this idea that aging could actually be a disease and we can treat it like a disease, then not only do we reduce aging, but we potentially can reduce all of these impacts as well. Not the impacts, only the impacts that they have on ourselves, but on our societies too. So what that tells me is I'm thinking not necessarily so much about, well, here's the big idea. Unhealthy aging is not inevitable. The things that we do matter, and in the coming years, we're even going to be able to do more. So perhaps the most important thing I can tell you today is stay alive. Wear your seatbelt, get your shots, take your medicine, be careful what you eat. Do all the things that you can do to stay alive now, because the science is coming that we are going to see potentially expansions, not just longer average human lives, but maybe even maximum human lifespans that could be much larger, much longer than anything we've seen before. So what does that mean? It has a lot of really exciting implications. I think you can see that. But try to take a minute now to imagine, what would it look like if people routinely lived to be 140 years old? Let's say even 120 years old. Let's say people routinely live to be 120. You should have a lot of questions about that, right? Like, where are all these people going to live? What are our cities going to look like if we have people who are 120 or 140 years old? What does a mortgage look like if you're going to be living in a house for 100 years? That's a really important question that we need to be thinking about. It also says really important things about education. How many times will I expect to go back to school in a 140-year life? What does work look like? If I'm going to live to be 140, can I retire at 65? No. Do you think our governments are prepared for a retirement age going up? Is our society prepared for that? I don't think it is. Also, how do we save money? How do we spend money? How do we invest money over such an extremely long lifespan? If you've got a business, how do you interact with clients, with the same client for 100 years? That could be your business's future. And perhaps the most important question I want to ask is, how do we ensure that these benefits of healthy, longer lives are accessible to as many people as possible? I don't want a world where it's only rich people who get to live their longest, healthiest, best lives. I'm assuming you're all here because you want the same thing. We need to make sure that this amazing technology, these amazing advances that we're seeing happening today, are going to bring the world together rather than divide us apart. And estudiantes, ¿dónde están ustedes? Where are the students? Yeah, okay. You guys, this is you. This is your world that we're building today. You are the leaders of that. You are the architects of that. And this is an amazing opportunity to change the world, because I'm showing you that the world is going to be different. The question becomes, what do you do in that world? How do we live not just life, but the good life? And how do we value those lives? So looking forward, we are going to be doing this work together. These important questions mean that we need to be preparing ourselves for a world of radically healthier and longer human lives. We need to embrace new systems, new technologies, new mindsets, new ideas, which of course is why we're all here today. And we also need new leaders and new colleagues, people who share our vision of that future. But there's good news about this road ahead of us, and it's this. I wanted to share this wonderful quote with you, which says, "People who have a strong sense of purpose and meaning in their lives have a markedly lower risk of death than those who don't." When we dedicate our lives' work to making the world a better place, we not only benefit everyone else, but we benefit ourselves too. So join me on this journey through the rest of this health panel to see exactly how a lot of this is going to happen and get ready to build your best life. Please stay in touch with me. Come follow me on social media. I enjoy sharing a lot of stories about this, inspiration, problems, challenges, and opportunities. And I look forward to seeing you for many, many years to come. Thank you.